Here goes nothing. Hey guys, I'm Star Connor and welcome to my channel. I am a former TV anchor, reporter, and now I'm telling my own stories. It's funny how life throws you lemons and you make lemonade, and that's just what I'm doing right now. I just got out of a news contract, lost my job, and here I am. I'm about to open you up to my life journey and my stories. And with that, it's kind of funny. I've been telling stories for over 15 years, and now I'm nervous to tell my own. Why is that? I don't know, but I'm here. Maybe people need to hear it. Maybe people want to hear it. Maybe people, thought that I was this big superstar, and I'm just this little old star from Gastonia. It's funny how people sit there and say, your name, Star Connor. Star Connor rings a bell. Well, Star Connor's here, and I'm gonna open up to you. So, here goes. A lot of people have asked me about my background and how I got started as a reporter and where I am now and things like that. Well, I've been a little quiet for a couple of months, and I would say that's because I just needed to find myself and just learn about who Star really is. So I'll just rewind and go a little backwards. So it all started in high school when, you're picking your career, and a lot of people are like, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna do nursing? Are you gonna be a teacher? Are you gonna be a scientist? Are you gonna be an artist? Well, I knew I had a gift. I always asked a lot of questions. My mom used to say, when I was little, I used to always say, why is the sky blue outside? Why is this ant crawling on the window? I used to just ask a lot of questions. So it rung to me, and it came to me when I was watching Robin Roberts on Good Morning America. And I would just always watch CNN. Like, CNN just always brought breaking news and very engaging news. So I knew that's what I was gonna do. I was gonna be a journalist. I was gonna be that girl. I was gonna be that girl on TV. So I did it. I really did it. And looking back now, I'm blessed. I'm truly blessed. But here I am, and we'll catch up and get to that, where we are now. So I went to North Carolina A&T for School of Journalism, and you used to see all the celebrities on the red carpets. You used to listen to radio stations, and you just wanted to be that voice. I always wanted to be that voice and that girl on TV. I learned every skill I could. I learned how to edit. I learned how to speak. I learned how to write. All my professors taught me good, and they taught me very well in college. So I learned a lot going to a HBCU because they focused on us. Well, after that, I took about four internships, I would say. I worked at the local station in Charlotte, the news station there, NBC, and then I worked at a local radio station in Charlotte, and just learned everything I could. And then, I graduated in the worst times. And what's funny? I can actually relate right now in 2025 to graduating back in 2009. 2009, the house market was bad. The economy was bad. No one was, finding jobs. So your girl was working at a shoe store. But I always had that hustle mentality. I always knew I had that hustle grind. Just because I was working at a shoe store, my name wasn't Star for anything. I knew one day that I would do something with my name. So it took about a year applying for jobs. Then finally, one radio station in Charlotte gave me that chance. They gave me a chance that I couldn't resist. Even though it was part-time, I still took that job. Your girl became one of the top producers for a national syndicated radio show. This little girl from small little town became a big producer for a national syndicated show. That's right. I knew I had it in me, and I did it. That was just step one. So working the skills that I had, I went on to become a writer for a top magazine, as well as, being a producer for this top syndicated show and being an on-air community personality. I got to write stories for this magazine. This magazine noticed that I would shoot, write, edit my own things, and they asked me for a lifetime deal that I couldn't resist. The Grammy Awards had came, and then the BET Awards had came up in conversation, and they were like, Star, why don't you go to these events and cover them and, shoot video for us? And, that's when social media was just starting and we were just now putting things on YouTube. They were like, Star, why don't you go do that and shoot it for our company? You think I said, no? Nah, I said yes. I took that first shot. I was very ambitious, by the way, in my 20s. Like, yeah, I'm not going to tell my age, by the way, but I'm in my 30s if you want to know. But black don't crack. But I was very ambitious as a young 20-year-old. I would do anything. I would say yes to most things. And that's what you had to do to move up. So I found myself in rooms that I could only imagine. I covered, I don't know how many Grammy Awards. I think I've covered 4 BET Awards in my lifetime. I've covered so many awards, it's not even funny. I've covered the Dove Awards, I've covered Country Music Awards. I've covered a lot of awards in red carpets. That's something that a lot of people could only dream of doing. And I had the opportunity to do that because I expanded my world within my part-time job at the radio station. I showed them my skills. I became a writer. I became a photographer. I became a videographer. I became the person to interview all of the celebrities. Yes, I was a one-man band, and I still am a one-man band today. We'll get to that too. So working in radio got me a lot of opportunities, and that's where I started. But I still had this little itch that I wanted to be on CNN, or I still had this little itch that I wanted to do news, and I wanted to dive into that. The economy was finally getting back to normal at that time. So I kind of was like, how do I get into the news field if I want to be this, big national reporter or anchor? Well, I actually called around and asked some agents to look at my reels, and they were saying, Star, you have the talents, but you only have entertainment. And at that time, I only had an entertainment demo reel. So they were like, no, you need to go out and do stories about real life and breaking news. Funny, this little broke girl working part-time started saving up money. I invested in a Canon TI Rebel. I remember it was almost probably about $700. And then I got a MacBook and I was like, I'm gonna start doing this. So I went out and got that camera and started shooting stories and interviewing just regular people on regular streets. And then I started putting together local news content. What exactly is local news content, by the way? Basically anything that is, a normal day. So I remember one story, it was a big major lottery win around town. I went around gas stations and talked to people about the lottery and what would they do with their money if they won the lottery and things like that. I remember that being one of my stories. Then I remember it was a crime that was taking place at this restaurant in Charlotte, and I had filmed, that area where the crime had taken place and made sure I had, the crime scene tape and all that stuff that you really see on TV. This little girl, just making stories that actually really happened, but I was just going behind the scenes and making it my own. So I finally got that demo reel together, and y'all, I could say that I probably applied to about 500 news stations within the country, and I only got one call back. You know how many years it took me to finally get in news? 6 years. Started radio June 2010. Got my first call back way in Michigan in August 2016. So if you want to do that journey of news, I'm not telling you not to do it. You just gonna have to, have some grit and some gut, because it's gonna take you a lot of years to get where you wanna go. But right now, I see a lot of people getting out of college and, actually getting in the news field easily. But it wasn't that easy for us in 2009. So when I finally got in news, I got my first call way in Michigan. That was 13 hours away from home. I'm going to tell you now, if you want something, you're going to have to take some leaps of faith. You're going to have to jump out there and you're going to have to probably go somewhere you don't want to go. And that was me. I ended up in a small little town where it was only probably, I would say, about 40 African Americans. So if you're African American, you could probably relate. Like, where are the people? But I mean, it was a culture shock. It was a big culture shock, but I did it. I laugh now because that was some of the darkest times of my life. A lot of people don't realize, as a reporter and as an anchor on TV, we cover up a lot of our feelings, and we cover up a lot of deep, dark secrets that, we don't want to bring on camera. And that's why I'm here to open up and talk about, the different things that people don't realize that we go through, and that we're just human, just like anybody else. But in that journey in Michigan, it was an eye-opener. You would think I was on the National Geographic, some of the stories I covered. Your girl went ice fishing. I walked on frozen lakes. Yeah, that was kind of creepy. I mean, because the lake was very deep and you would die if that ice cracked. Yeah, I did stories like that. I covered moose. I covered bears. I've covered, St. Antler Day. For the ones that don't know what St. Antler Day is, it's literally a season where men take their kids out and they go hunting. St. Antler Day, the kids are out of school, by the way. So deer hunting is something that they do in Michigan. And it was very eye-opening. And yeah, I've had deer jerky, I've had deer steaks, I've had deer burgers. Do I like it? No. But it was something that I did. And I stayed in Michigan for 3 years. Whew, that was the longest 3 years of my life. When I say snow was above my head, it was literally snow above my head like for 6 months out of the year. It even snowed in July. I remember one 4th of July, we were covering the 4th of July celebrations, and it snowed out of nowhere. And everybody was like, what in the world is going on? It's snowing in Michigan. So I just built the strength, and I just knew I wanted to get, closer to a bigger city to cover news. So then I just started applying everywhere, but nobody was calling. It was a struggle trying to get another contract in another city. But I finally got one, and you will not believe the state it took me to. West Virginia. Now, you know how they say networking and it's who you know, not what you know? That was very true in this case. It was who I knew, not what I knew. One guy gave me a chance because he remembered me from this organization called NABJ, National Association of Black Journalists. He was one of my mentors back in college, and he remembered me and he remembered my name, and he was a news director at the station that I was going to in West Virginia. He got me out of Michigan. It wasn't easy, guys. I will tell you this. I remember coming from Michigan, renting a car, driving overnight for my interview, then getting right back in the car and going back to work the next day. So I had an interview all in 2 days. So I got that job, and then, that took me on some more journeys. I covered what's called Bridge Day, when you go across and jump off the tallest bridge in America. Yep, that's over the New River Gorge. Did I jump off the bridge? No. But your girl did zip line down that bridge. I actually have the pictures to show you. Other things that you wouldn't believe I would have to cover. Sadly, I covered a lot of incest. I covered a lot of bombing threats. Murder. Murder was the top notch in West Virginia, I would say. Either that or just talking about the poor man's country. Sadly, West Virginia's funding was not good when I was there, and some of the counties was just sad. And, I just felt like I wanted to help people. And I think that's why I did become a reporter and a journalist, because not only do I ask questions, but I want to help people. And I knew nursing wasn't the way to go for me in helping people, but it was actually becoming a journalist, asking those questions like, how can I help you? What do you need? What does the community need? Do you need some clothes? Do your babies need diapers? Do you need food? And sadly, I would hate to say this, but I am going to say it. I'm sitting here asking all these people, what do they need and how can I help them, when I need to help myself. As a reporter and as a journalist, when you first start out, you are not making anything. I will tell you, my first salary was $19,000. Oprah said it best. She started out with chump change. So did we. Yes, I started out with only $19,000 in my pocket. And then it gradually moved up. I would say my second job was maybe $25,000. Then the third job was maybe $31,000. You do not make anything. So it is not about the money. if you're gonna be a journalist. It's about, what do you do? It's about helping people. It's about telling those stories. So like I said, I was sitting there asking people what could I do for them when I'm sitting over here eating a bologna sandwich or a turkey sandwich for dinner versus a steak and mashed potatoes like some of my friends that were architects and lawyers and doctors. Some of them are dentists too. But I didn't care. I cared about helping people and I cared about telling their stories. And now it's just time to help myself and tell my own stories. In West Virginia, that taught me to open up my eyes and know that it's a different world out there. Michigan did too, but West Virginia really did it for me. So after West Virginia, I merged and took a break. Because when I was in West Virginia, that's when the pandemic hit. And funny, I should have been doing this during the pandemic. Okay, so back to what I was saying. Your girl wasn't strong enough in the pandemic, and that led me to a mental breakdown. But stay tuned for part 2. I'll get into that.